Story 1. My apartment is haunted, but I'm too broke to leave. It wasn't the first time I had come home to a pool of mysteriously spilled red liquid. The fan was switched on, and the air stirred soft ripples across the shiny surface. I sighed, shut my eyes for an instant, then stepped forward, right onto the strange puddle. There was no splash, no sticky feeling. I opened my eyes. The red liquid was gone. I walked right to the kitchen and poured myself a cup of coffee. That eerie puddle doesn't even rank in the top 5 of disturbing things I've seen in this apartment. I've seen phantom limbs, a distorted face with hollow, staring eyes, even strands of hair still attached to a piece of something unidentifiable. I wouldn't say I'm used to it, but I've started figuring out how to live with it. The first time I saw something, it was the worst one, the face, those eyes that didn't blink. I screamed, turned to run, slammed into a wall, fell down stunned, turned my head to see the same face just inches away, screamed again, and blacked out. The doctors said it was stress-induced hallucinations. Mood-dependent perception disorder or something close. I saw a psychiatrist, went on some meds, then began pretending I wasn't seeing anything anymore. They were talking about admitting me or suggesting I quit my job. But quitting? Not in this economy. And getting admitted would just make things harder for me financially. I could move out. But finding a place at this rent, and with this location, saving on travel costs. No chance. I know it sounds irrational, but I'd rather deal with these things, assuming they can't actually harm me, I hope, than end up with nothing. These days, I just ignore them. I used to take photos, just to see if anything showed up. Spoiler, they didn't. Not in the usual sense. Now I just walk through them and they fade away. I'm considering calling for help. An exorcist. A spiritual leader. Anyone. I've even bought secondhand spiritual trinkets and put them around the place. A cross here, a Buddha figure there, even a Shiva image near the entrance. Nothing's changed. I'm not sure I can afford a legit spiritual expert. The ones with decent reviews charge a lot. And if I settle for someone less reputable, I might as well save that money to escape this place eventually. But they're a distraction. I just got back from work and now I'm sitting here, typing this out, trying not to react to the phantom arm hanging off the back of my chair. I've seen it before. It's not real. It's not. Wait. It moved. The fingers just twitched. No. I'm just going to keep typing. Pretend I didn't see that. There's something on my left. Oh no. That same face. But the eyes, they're not empty anymore. They're focused. On me. Did it just? Leo, it whispered. I think. I'm calling the police. Calmly. If I don't post this, if you find this later on my computer, please understand that something happened. That maybe, just maybe, these things aren't as harmless as I once thought. Well, here I am again. The police came. They found me panicking, swinging at something they couldn't see, shouting uncontrollably, collapsed on the ground, overwhelmed. There were marks all over my arms and legs. Even my face. I had apparently scratched myself in a panic. I don't fully remember what happened. The hospital psychologist said it was likely dissociation, a way my brain tried to protect me from overload. But I remember the name Leo. Even without rereading what I had typed before. I remember calling the police, telling them to come immediately, giving them my address, then feeling something yank my head back. A sharp sensation in my neck. Then, nothing. I'm okay though. No serious injuries. I agreed to be monitored for a few days, voluntarily. They gave me my laptop and other basic stuff, so I'm still able to keep notes. According to the doctors, I posed a risk to myself. Based on what they said, I had acted out physically in fear. They've got me on a mild sedative. Helps a bit. Keeps me calm. I did some digging into Leo. I even called my landlady. Her voice changed the moment I mentioned the name. She told me Leo was the boyfriend of her previous long-term tenant, Sasha. Sasha had left very suddenly. Just disappeared. The landlady never got to say goodbye. Sasha sent a quick message about leaving and never followed up. She even gave up her deposit, she was in such a rush. The landlady said she only ever met Leo briefly, when he came by to pack up Sasha's stuff. Apparently, Leo told her Sasha had moved for work. I asked if she remembered anything else about him. She said he seemed tense. Nervous. Like someone constantly looking over their shoulder. She didn't get a good feeling from him. There was a pause on the line, before she quietly added, I always wondered what really happened to her. Sasha. I nodded instinctively, then remembered she couldn't see me and replied aloud. Yes. Leaving so suddenly, abandoning the deposit. Have you ever heard from her again? No. Not a word. She didn't know much else about Leo either. Only that she saw him briefly twice, once during some plumbing work, and again during Sasha's move-out. I decided to find him myself. I typed in his name along with Sasha's, plus the town we're in, and surprisingly, found him quickly. His profile was private. I made a new account with a friendly-looking profile photo and sent a follow request. He accepted. My plan was to build trust, maybe flirt a bit online, and then gradually ask questions. But I only had 3 days at the facility. Maybe 7, if I pretended to fail the checkup. But missing work for too long would get me fired. I had to figure this out before going back to that apartment. Sure, I could just leave. But breaking the lease meant losing my deposit, and I couldn't afford to live anywhere else in this city. This place was shockingly cheap, and now I was starting to understand why. I need this job. It's my first stable one in a long while. The first that feels like it might go somewhere. But the strange visions, whatever they are, have escalated. They're not just visual anymore. They can interact with me. Physically. I had to confront this. So I messaged Leo directly. I didn't hesitate. What happened to Sasha? I typed. Who is this? He responded almost immediately. He must have been active. Just tell me what really happened. He blocked me within the minute. I'd pushed too far, too fast. Still, I kept digging. Trying to find anything I could. But stuck in the facility, there wasn't much I could do. 3 days later, I was discharged. And once I got back home, I braced myself, for the puddle of red, the strange sights, the awful face. What I saw instead was a shadow. I noticed it the moment I stepped into the living room. Someone was hiding behind the couch. Their silhouette stretched out across the floor. I froze, breath caught in my chest. I took a slow step back, the cool tiles beneath my feet echoing the chill in my bones. Another step toward the door. My foot landed in something thick, and I slipped. My head hit something hard, and darkness blurred the edges of my vision. Then he appeared over me. Leo. I recognized him despite my dazed, hazy vision. I tried to move, but my head throbbed painfully. Don't, I gasped, as he leaned down and grabbed my ankles. I struggled weakly, but everything around me spun. He pulled me into the bedroom, placed me inside the closet, and pulled out a key. I didn't even know the closet had a lock. Then he shut the door. Stay in there until I take care of it. You'll be safer this way. Safer. Suddenly the closet door shook violently. Something was slamming into it from the outside. The hinges groaned. My chest tightened. My pulse pounded with each thunderous hit. Leo had lost it. Despite the pounding pain in my head, I leaned forward and peeked through the slats. Bam! A face slammed up against the door. Eyes peered in, dark, bloated, rotting. Something twisted squirmed where pupils should have been. I screamed and recoiled, banging my head again. That thing growled. Then I saw Leo rush forward, grabbing its hair, pulling it back, exactly like it had done to me. It snarled, and something landed on my face through the slats. The stench that followed was sharp, sickly sweet, and unbearable. I wiped my face in a panic, gagging, the urge to vomit rising fast. I heard Leo speaking. Not English. Some chant, rhythmic and forceful. Then he threw something at the thing's head. Before I could process that, I spotted more movement, something creeping up behind him. Behind you. I yelled before thinking. Before even knowing if he was truly on my side. Leo spun around, dodging just in time. The fight raged on, but soon they vanished from my view through the slats. I sat frozen, listening. Clashes. Growls. Shrieks. Shattered furniture. Then, silence. Except for strained breathing. Footsteps. I held my breath and curled into the corner. The closet doors swung open. Leo. Bloodied, bruised, but his eyes were fierce, determined. Hope surged in me. Then fear. What was Leo? He tried to protect me, sure, but who was he really? What did he want? She must have loosened the box, he said. She must have what? I asked, still disoriented. Sasha's mother. She must have weakened the seal. Sasha's mother? What box? The landlady. You've met her. That's Sasha's mom. She's what? And then he told me everything. How Sasha had died, back when they were together. How her life had ended in something horrific, performed by two so-called friends. They'd invited her on what they called a nature retreat. Remote cabin. Hidden motives. She never returned. But then, something else did. She came back. Changed. Different. She appeared in the dark. Visited Leo. Haunted him. Eventually, Leo believed Sasha, or what she had become, had taken revenge on her killers. Both had died, mysteriously, before any real investigation concluded. He and Sasha's mother had worked together to trap the entity. They sought help from people who dealt with things beyond this world. Shamans. They had created a special box. Something that could contain what Sasha had become. Shamans, I repeated softly, remembering my own list of people I'd considered calling. Priests, monks, witches. I hadn't thought of shamans. Not that I could afford them anyway. They couldn't kill her straight out, she was too powerful. But she could be trapped within the box, sealed from the world. There, she would eventually weaken and fade. But it seemed Sasha's mother couldn't bear it. Couldn't accept the thought of her daughter withering away in some cursed box. Leo believed she had loosened the seal. Just a little. How, he didn't know. But enough for Sasha to feed. On unsuspecting new tenants. On me. Where's Sasha now? I asked. Back in the box. Under the bed. Under the bed. She had been there the entire time. That presence. That thing. I had been sleeping right above her. I didn't let it go. The next morning, I confronted the landlady. About her lies. About how she tried to frame Leo. Tried to push me away from him by making him seem dangerous. All while trying to offer me up to her daughter. And that is how I now live rent-free in an apartment in the heart of the city. The images stopped. No more blood. No more limbs. No more haunting stares. I have a free place to stay. I just cover utilities. That's the deal I struck with her. The box stays sealed now. Tightly. All I have to put up with are the scratching sounds beneath my bed. Late at night, when the city quiets down, I can hear them. Sometimes, when I lie awake too long, I think I feel worms crawling in my eyes. And if I hold my breath, sometimes, I swear I can hear hers. But hey, beggars can't be choosers. Story 2. I found something terrifying on Google Maps. I won't tell you where to look. Unless you want something unsettling to stare right back at you. When I first came across the house in 2012, it wasn't disturbing. It was intriguing. I can't recall exactly what led me to that small British village, remote, quiet, mostly empty, but I was aimlessly browsing satellite maps when something caught my eye. What stopped me was a particular backyard behind a detached house, sitting next to wide stretches of farmland. There was a long, T-shaped shadow sprawled across the lawn. To me, it looked like a giant scarecrow. Now, most satellite imagery is captured when the sun is high in the sky, meaning shadows are minimal. You rarely see people out and about, and even if you do, their outlines are too short to be noticeable. So it couldn't have been a person standing there, arms outstretched. But something about the scarecrow theory didn't feel quite right either. Anyway, I was still a teenager back then, and my attention span was short. I forgot about the whole thing. Years passed. In 2016, a friend and I were talking about weird internet mysteries, those unsolved stories that float around forums and YouTube videos, and I suddenly remembered my own little mystery from 4 years prior. I pulled up the house on Google Maps to show him. And it was stranger than before. Now there were two shadows. Both T-shaped. The original one was still the same size, and the new one stood beside it, half as tall. Strange shadows, my friend Oliver remarked. And it's just a house, not a farm. Why would someone need scarecrows in a residential garden? I can't recall how I replied. The conversation drifted in a different direction, and to be honest, we'd been drinking a bit. My brain was fuzzy. Fast forward to 2019. Out of nowhere, Oliver brought up that same house again. Naturally, we looked it up. And once more, the image had changed. The second shadow had grown. It was now as tall as the first. That's when it started to really get to me. For the first time since I saw it all those years ago, I felt something close to fear. Oliver must have felt it too, his wide eyes told me before his forced laughter tried to cover it up. There was a pause in him. A break in his usual calm. And I found myself wondering, why were two strange shadows giving us both this uneasy feeling? The baby scarecrow's all grown up, he said, breaking the silence. I said nothing. About half a minute later, Oliver turned his phone toward me. He had Google Maps open again. 52 minutes, he said. I looked at the screen. A driving route. From his flat to the very house we'd been staring at online. Less than an hour away. You're joking. I'm not, he said, grinning. We've talked about this house for years. Don't you want to see what's actually in that backyard? I shook my head. Not anymore. That image, something's off about it, Oliver. He rolled his eyes. Come on, Jamie. I know you. It's been stuck in your head for ages. You need to see it. We're not driving across the country just to peek over someone's garden fence. Well, I'm going. And I'd rather not go alone, Oliver said, tossing on his jacket. You know street view won't help. And the hedges are too tall for satellite to show what's behind them. We have to see it for ourselves. It felt like I had stepped out of my own body for a while. Like I'd let someone, or something, else take the reins. I didn't fully process what we were doing until Oliver's car rolled to a stop outside the house we'd been staring at through satellite images for years. No longer a flat map marker, it was now a real, solid, three-dimensional structure right in front of us. The house looked ordinary enough, red brick, plain windows, a tiled roof. But it was boxed in by towering hedges, at least 8 feet high, surrounded by open countryside, and an eerie, absolute silence. We had passed a few other cottages along the winding country lanes. But here, at this particular spot, it felt like sound itself had been swallowed. No birdsong. No wind. Just the silence pressing in from all sides. Something about seeing it in person sent a chill over my skin. Made me want to reach over, yank the wheel, and drive us far away from those tall hedges and the stillness behind them. I stared at the thick greenery. Unless you brought stilts, how exactly are we going to see into that garden? Oliver simply smiled and stepped out of the car. I followed him to the boot, already suspecting he had something up his sleeve. He was never one to talk when he could just show. Sure enough, he pulled out a drone. I groaned quietly to myself. I wasn't thrilled at the idea of flying a camera over someone's private property. It felt invasive. But I reasoned that it was still better than climbing the fence and trespassing. So, reluctantly, I gave a nod. Oliver powered up the drone, and it buzzed into the sky with a whirring sound, its propeller spinning faster until it became just a pale blur against the clouds. He synced it to his tablet, and we watched the live feed from the camera together. The drone rose higher, clearing the roof of the house. And then we saw the garden. What we saw made us both gasp, our breath catching in our throats, not scarecrows. Not even close. They were people. Two human figures, bound tightly at their wrists and ankles with thick rope, tied to tall wooden structures that looked an awful lot like crosses. My stomach dropped. Oliver didn't say a word, but the color drained from his face. The screen showed what I had only imagined in shadowed form before, now disturbingly real. Neither of us screamed. We didn't shout. We simply froze. The kind of freeze that only true fear brings. The kind that shuts your brain down. That robs you of even the instinct to run. And then, trembling, Oliver slowly guided the drone lower. As we got closer, the image became even more chilling. One of them was a young boy, maybe 15 or 16. He was moving, though barely. Weakly squirming against the restraints. His eyes, tired but aware, locked onto the drone above. He wore a white t-shirt with 5 letters torn straight through the fabric, letters that cut through to the skin beneath, marked in what looked like dried blood. Spawn. I leaned against the car, my knees weak, tears welling in my eyes. We have to call someone, I said, voice trembling. Oliver nodded, but neither of us moved. Then the camera panned to the second figure, the one tied to the original cross I had first seen on Google Maps all those years ago. It was a woman. Or, it had been. At first, it looked as though someone had dressed a scarecrow in overalls. Her limbs looked too thin, too stiff, like they were made of something that didn't belong to a living body. But no, she was real. And horrifyingly alive. Her legs were gone. So were her lower arms. Only the upper parts of her arms remained, lashed tightly with rope. Her body sagged against the restraints, and yet, she was breathing. Barely. That's when Oliver and I snapped out of our daze. Both of us staggered back from the screen, one hand over my mouth, the other gripping the side of the car for support. It was real. All of it. And what we thought were just shadows on a lawn, were people. Alive. Barely. Carved through her overalls and deep into her skin, just like the boy beside her, was another haunting word. Jagged, red, brutal. Not just painted, cut in. Wretched. Oliver opened his mouth to speak, but all that came out was a shaky whisper of a breath. Before he could find actual words, a sudden crack rang out across the countryside. The drone feed cut to static. Then we saw it fall, spiraling out of the air, crashing somewhere behind the house and into the garden. That sound wasn't thunder. It was sharper. More direct. A gunshot. The kind you only hear out in the most remote parts of the countryside. And then, I saw him. A bulky silhouette moved behind the upstairs curtain. A thick figure, broad shoulders, hulking frame, parted the drapes, and through the flimsy fabric, something metallic glinted. A double-barreled shape appeared. And then a hand reached for the window latch. Go. I screamed. Go now. We dove back into the car. My hands were shaking so badly I missed the handle twice. The second I slammed my door, I heard the squeak of the window being pushed open above us. I didn't need to look up. I knew what was now pointed in our direction. Oliver hit the gas. The car jerked forward, tires kicking up gravel. My breath caught, I braced for the sound of glass shattering, for Oliver to slump forward in a bloody collapse at the wheel. But, it never came. No second shot. We just drove. And drove. Minutes passed before Oliver finally exploded. "What the hell was that?" he shouted, voice breaking, tears and spit flying as panic took over. I couldn't answer. I was curled up in my seat, crying. We pulled into a petrol station 20 minutes later. I told him, no, begged him, that we had to call the police. Right now. We'd witnessed something horrific. Something criminal. We had no choice. But Oliver hesitated. "No," he said. "What if he's already cleaned it up? What if we lose our only chance to prove what we saw?" He looked at me, his face pale and desperate. "We should go back. Right now. Just get one photo, one recording. Then we call." "You're out of your mind," I snapped. "This isn't some mystery show, Ollie. This is real. You don't go back to where someone pointed a weapon at you." Still, he pushed. "We don't have time. If we wait, everything could be gone. They'll never believe us." We argued back and forth, but eventually, Oliver seemed to give in. He agreed, we'd call the authorities. We'd report everything. We'd do it the right way. Relieved, I grabbed my wallet and went inside to pay for fuel. And when I came out, the car was gone. He had left me. I stood there, stunned, staring at the empty spot. I tried calling him, once, twice, over and over for the next hour. No answer. And that's when I called the police. To their credit, they took me seriously. Officers were dispatched. They searched the house. They combed through the garden. But they found nothing. No bound victims. No drone wreckage. No sign of a gunshot. Nothing to back up my story. The homeowner, an older man named Mr. Tomlinson, claimed he hadn't seen any drone. No visitors. Nothing unusual at all. I showed the officers the satellite image on Google Maps. The one with the long, T-shaped shadows. Mr. Tomlinson just laughed. Said the image must have been over a year old. That he used to have decorative figures in the garden, but had thrown them away months ago. Statues, he called them. And apparently, that explanation was good enough. There were plenty of ways to support my story. The police reviewed CCTV footage from the petrol station. They saw Oliver and me standing by the pump. Then they saw him drive off alone while I was inside paying. "See?" I said, pointing at the footage. "We're not saying you're lying, Jamie," one officer replied. "We just need more solid evidence." I gestured at the screen. "Isn't this enough?" We arrived together, and now he's vanished. "It looks like the two of you had a disagreement," another officer offered. "Maybe your friend just needed to cool off." They told me they'd treat it as a missing persons case, once the proper time had passed. When 48 hours came and went and Oliver was still missing, they started to take me more seriously. But days turned to weeks, and then months. There was no sign of him. No leads. And the police reported finding no evidence of anything suspicious at Mr. Tomlinson's property. Nothing in the garden. No strange equipment. No damage. No drone. Nothing. Then the pandemic hit. And just like that, the world had bigger problems. My story, already hard to believe, got lost in the noise. I kept telling it, over and over again. About the shadows. About the drone. About the things Oliver and I saw. But nobody listened anymore. Eventually, I started digging into Mr. Tomlinson's area on my own. I looked into local hamlets and farms around his village. I found old news reports, and that's when I stumbled onto something strange. In 2011, a woman and a farmer went missing in the same region. That caught my attention. So I joined a private Facebook group for locals. Pretended I was thinking of moving there. It worked. They let me in. And that's where I discovered the gossip. Apparently, the farmer had been a widower for a few years before meeting someone new in 2010. A woman from the next county over. Some people in the village didn't approve. They'd loved his late wife. And worse, this new partner. She wasn't local. An out-of-towner, someone wrote. I brought this info to the police. Told them about the connection. But they weren't interested. They already knew about the missing persons, they said. That's all they told me. Stonewalled. Just like they'd done with Oliver. That's when the paranoia kicked in. These officers, they lived in the area. What if they were part of that same tight-knit circle? What if they didn't want to investigate too deeply? What if they already knew the truth? What if they were involved? Admittedly, there were gaps. We had seen a woman and a boy in that garden. Not a woman and a man. But still, something about the timing, about those disappearances, felt too close. Too suspicious. I thought about going back. Ignoring the lockdown. Doing my own investigation. But then. The letters started arriving. Typed notes. No return address. Slipped through my letterbox. I watched too. No one will ever find them. And the last one. Don't come back. You'll come forth. That one broke me. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't leave the house. I became completely terrified of going outside. I would have risked anything to find Oliver, but I couldn't face the idea of seeing that man again. The man who stood in the window. Who aimed that weapon. Call me a coward if you want, but try to imagine what you'd do if someone like that knew where you lived. Every night, I stared out the windows, half expecting to see his shadow in the backyard. Or his car in my driveway. I don't know how he found me. And just when I thought I was starting to recover, in early 2023, I thought back to something in that last note. That word, forth. I used to think it was a typo. That he meant. You'll come forth. But then, a new thought struck me. I opened Google Maps again. I zoomed in on Mr. Tomlinson's house. And my stomach dropped. There, in the most recent satellite image. 3 long, T-shaped shadows painted across the grass. 3. I know who the third is. But even now, 2 years later, I'm still too scared to go back. Too scared to confirm what I already know. Because if I do, I might become the 4th shadow in that garden. More straw than man.